On my birthday, I closed my eyes to make a wish. Who knew that right as I opened them, my mom would suddenly shift her body to block me, giving my sister the perfect chance to blow out my candles. I immediately grabbed the cake and smashed it right into my sister's face. Blow, blow, blow. Are you not gonna live to see your own birthday or something? Before my sister could even start screaming and crying, I threw myself onto the floor. I started crawling around like a dark, twisted creature. I frantically pulled my hair, screamed, cried, did push-ups, paced back and forth, wailed like a ghost, twisted my body in unnatural ways, and rolled my eyes into the back of my head. My parents were absolutely stunned. My name is Chloe Jones, and I have been reborn at the age of 14. I can summarize my past life in 3 words: martyrdom syndrome. Before I was 10, I was a left-behind child. My parents were in the city hustling for their careers, while I lived in the countryside with my grandparents. They only wanted a grandson, so they couldn't stand the sight of me. During those days with no father, no mother, and no love, I kept telling myself that I needed to be kind, to be loved, that I had to be a forgiving person to earn people's respect. At 10, I was finally brought to the city by my parents, only to discover I suddenly had an 8-year-old sister. The absurd decade that followed proved one simple truth to me. If you take a step back, people will just walk all over your miserable face. Nobody will ever love someone who doesn't even love themselves. The aftermath of the cake smashing incident was, of course, my dad lifting me up by the collar, giving me a huge slap. Then he started beating the absolute shit out of me. While getting my ass handed to me, I wailed and cried freely, venting all the grievances I had held in for a lifetime. You just favor her. You 3 are the real family. If that's the case, why didn't you just strangle me when I was born? Beat me to death, kill me? I'll reincarnate you, go to prison. In my next life I'll be your dad, and I'll play favorites too. I'll favor someone else so hard. The moment you are born, I'll flush you down the damn toilet. My dad was so furious his veins were popping out like a literal demon. My mom just looked at me with pure disappointment. What the hell is wrong with you? Joke's on her. Her eyes were always full of disappointment anyway. I was immune to it now. I even gave her a smile that clearly said I'll fucking do it again. The next day, I purposely wore a thick, heavy winter coat to school. It was fall. All the kids were wearing light long-sleeve shirts, and there I was bundled up in a puffer jacket, sweating like a pig. During class, my homeroom teacher walked over to me and told me to take it off, because seeing me sweat that much made her uncomfortable. I sobbed softly, putting on the ultimate act of a battered, pitiful victim. I slowly slipped off the jacket, revealing arms covered in horrific bruises and welts. Teacher immediately called the cops. I swore right then and there that I would study hard to repay her immense kindness. Honestly, God was on my side. My dad was a senior city official, a job where public image is absolutely everything. So I wasn't worried in the slightest that he would throw me out of the house. He probably wouldn't beat me to death either. All I wanted was fairness. If no one was going to give it to me, I'd snatch it myself. Over the weekend, Mom took my sister to the mall, and I was grounded, locked inside the house. Before leaving, she told me to think long and hard about the animalistic, disgusting things I had done recently. Your dad is the deputy city commissioner. He's at a crucial point for promotion. Do you realize you could become a stain on his record? If I knew you were going to be like this, I would have aborted you, Mom said, wrinkling her brow in disgust. My sister hid behind her making nasty faces. And me, I felt numb, completely numb. I sat in my room for a bit and suddenly remembered my past life. I was a girl praised by everyone. They clung to my body, drank my blood, ate my flesh, maliciously hurt me without consequence, took everything from me, and then patted my head. They would say, "You really are a good, obedient kid. Is it true that the squeaky wheel gets the grease?" If so, I wasn't just going to squeak. I was going to crawl on the floor like a goblin about my hair, pick my nose, dig at my eyeballs, climb a fucking tree, screech like an ape, and jump into a lake screaming. I tore the curtains off my window, cut the fabric into long strips, tied them into knots, and anchored one end to the radiator. I tied the other end around my waist. We lived on the 3rd floor of an upscale, gated community for government officials. Not too high, but standing on the window ledge still gave me a wave of vertigo. I carefully stepped 1 foot out. Instantly screams erupted from below. "Little girl, what are you doing? That's too dangerous. Go back inside. Go back." This was the city official's residential compound, the place I grew up in. Today, Chloe Jones was going to drag her family's reputation through the mud. I slowly let the rope down. Panicking. Neighbors were just about to call the police when I landed, safely on the ground, My revenge was meant for my parents. I wasn't about to waste police resources. Don't worry, folks. I was just locked inside for too long and needed some fresh air. I smiled, putting on a brave, tragic face. Even though we lived in the government compound, my parents actually owned several properties, mansions, and luxury condos. This brings me to my complicated family background. My father was the golden child who climbed out of a dirt-poor, rural town. He was the only college graduate from his county back in the day, entered local government, hustled for over a decade, and was now the second in command of the entire city bureau. But my dad wanted both money and power, so he made my mom quit her job to run businesses under her name. As a front, his political career skyrocketed and their bank accounts overflowed. But unluckily for him, he was stuck with a daughter like me. Tough shit for him, huh? The people in the compound gave my dad face and didn't blow the incident out of proportion. But everyone was gossiping behind his back. My dad beat the hell out of me again. This time, he was really swinging for the fences. Right in the middle of the beating, I suddenly blurted out, "Dad, did you forget to eat breakfast? Where's the strength?" He completely froze. Then his face turned a violent shade of red like an enraged bull, and he charged at me. I bolted to the window like a flash of lightning, threw it open and screamed, "Help! Domestic violence! I'm being beaten to death." My mom scrambled over, clamped a hand over my mouth, dragged me backward, and slammed the window shut. "Beat me to death. Tomorrow you'll be on the front page, and I'll be in hell. I even got the headline ready for you." Shocking. City commissioner does the unthinkable to his daughter at midnight. Is it a loss of humanity or moral bankruptcy? My dad was highly intelligent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been a college graduate. He forced himself to calm down heavily, slumping onto the sofa. "Spit it out. What do you want by acting this crazy?" Dad asked, lighting up a cigarette. "Put the cigarette out," I commanded. His hand twitched. "You little bastard. You dare think about your next words carefully before you speak to me." I crossed my arms, staring down at him with an authoritative glare. "Do you believe I'll send you to a fucking psych ward?" he threatened, clenching his jaw. I sneered. The great Commissioner Jones raised a lunatic daughter. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If I'm crazy, so are you. No wonder you've been stuck as a deputy commissioner your whole life. It's because your own flesh and blood is a certified psycho. He aggressively crushed his cigarette into the ashtray. "You don't have to be my daughter." I looked at him like he had a single brain cell. No way. Is anyone out there really that generous to raise another man's kid? He froze for a second, then lowered his head and stopped talking. "Richard Jones, you better believe I'm not exactly thrilled to be your daughter either. Let's make some ground rules." The time I turned 15, I had successfully morphed into the demonic terror of the household. Sometimes when Mia tried to snatch my things, Mom would actually snatch them back. She would toss them to me and snap at her. "Why are you taking her stuff? If you want something, I'll buy it for you." There was no love, but there was no abuse either. That was enough for me. One night, Mia came up to me and said, "Sister, I really pity you." "What? What's the point of rebelling against Mom and Dad? You won't get a single red cent of the inheritance in the future." I kept reading my book, totally ignoring her. But she kept running her mouth. "Chloe, who are you faking it for? Mom, Dad, and I are a family of 3. You are never going to be welcome in this house. If you were smart, you'd pack your bags and get the hell out when you turn 18. Maybe I'll convince them to throw a few $1,000 your way." I hurled the hardcover book straight at her, hailing her right in the forehead. "Oh, my God, sister." I shrieked at the top of my lungs. "Sister, why did you smash that book into your own head? If I have committed a sin, let God punish me. Do not hurt my innocent sister. I only drank soy milk this morning. I haven't even eaten meat. I'm doing good deeds." I roared. I violently slammed my own forehead into the floor. Then I started crawling toward her in a twisted posture, picked my nose, and wiped the booger onto her shirt. "Sister, how can I live without you?" Mia shrieked in terror. "Don't come near me. Stay away." The door to my bedroom flew open, slamming against the wall with a thunderous crack. My parents stood in the doorway, their faces pale, staring at the absolute train wreck unfolding on the floor. Mia was backed into the corner of the room, crying hysterically, clutching her knees to her chest as if trying to merge with the drywall. And there I was, doing a reverse crab walk across the carpet, my hair draped over my face like the girl from The Ring. "Sister, why? Why the cruelty?" I wailed, throwing my head back and shrieking at the ceiling fixture. The booger was innocent. It only wanted a home. "What the hell is going on in here?" my dad bellowed, though his voice cracked. He wasn't angry, he was exhausted. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion a man feels when he realizes his life is completely out of his control. I collapsed onto my stomach, violently flopping like a fish out of water. She hit herself with the book. She said she's going to take the inheritance and leave me to die in the streets. She said I'm a garbage child. I started violently pulling my own hair. I am garbage. Throw me in the bin. Recycle me into a plastic bag. I didn't. I didn't. Mia sobbed, pointing a trembling finger at me. She threw the book. She wiped her snot on me. Mom, she's a psycho. Put her in an asylum. My mom rushed over, but instead of comforting Mia, she grabbed her by the arm and yanked her up. Enough. Mom snapped. She looked at me, lying there on the floor with my eyes crossed, and a shudder physically rolled down her spine. Chloe, stop that. Just stop. I stopped flopping. I uncrossed my eyes, sat up perfectly straight, smoothed my skirt, and smiled placidly.
Mom.
The sheer speed of my transition from demonic entity to polite honor roll student made my father physically recoil. He took a step back, pulling Mom and Mia out of the room. Don't go in there, I heard him whisper harshly to Mia in the hallway. Just stay away from her. Are you stupid? Why do you keep poking the bear? But she. Shut up, Mom hissed. Your father has an inspection committee coming to his office this week. If that freak decides to start howling from the balcony again, we are all finished. Leave her alone. I sat on my bed, picking up my hardcover book and wiping the dust off the cover. I smiled, feeling a profound sense of inner peace. People think that to win against abusers, you have to be righteous, perfect, and unyielding. Bullshit. You just have to be crazier than them. You have to make the cost of interacting with you so astronomically high that they'd rather swallow glass than look in your direction. From that day on, I was a ghost in my own house, but a poltergeist. If they bought premium Wagyu beef for dinner and didn't leave me a portion, I wouldn't cry or complain. I would simply wake up at 3 a.m., take the remaining beef from the fridge, blend it into a liquid slurry with raw eggs and dirt from Mom's prized orchids, and pour it into my dad's expensive Italian leatherwork shoes. When he screamed the next morning, I stood at the top of the stairs, looking vacant, muttering about how the cows were crying for justice. They stopped leaving me out of meals. By the time I turned 16, I had perfected my academic life. I was at the top of my class, beloved by my teachers. To the outside world, Chloe Jones was a tragic, brilliant scholar who persevered despite her strict home environment. To my parents, I was a ticking time bomb living down the hall. But survival wasn't enough. Martyrdom syndrome in my past life taught me that abusers don't stop, they just wait for an opening. My dad was Richard Jones, a man who built his career on corruption and stepped on our necks to feel tall. When I turned 18, they would undoubtedly cut me off, throw me out, and leave me with nothing while Mia inherited the millions Mom laundered through her businesses. I needed leverage. Real, tangible leverage. Not just the threat of bad PR, but the threat of a federal indictment. I began my new hobby, sleepwalking. Every few nights, I would wander the house at 2 a.m. If Mom or Dad caught me, I would stand in the dark, holding a kitchen knife or a pair of scissors, staring blankly at the wall and whispering nursery rhymes in reverse. After exactly 3 incidents, they put heavy locks on the inside of their bedroom doors. That was all the clearance I needed. With them locked safely away, the house was mine. I started picking the lock to my dad's home office. He was a cautious man, but he was arrogant. He believed his family was terrified of him, so he got sloppy at home. Over the course of 6 months, I meticulously photographed everything. I found the hidden ledger taped to the underside of his bottom desk drawer. I documented the shell companies under Mom's maiden name, Crescent Spa Holdings, Horizon Real Estate Management. I found the offshore account numbers where the bribes from local construction contractors were funneled. I backed everything up onto 3 separate encrypted flash drives. One went into a safety deposit box I opened using a fake ID I bought in the city. One was hidden inside the hollowed-out base of my high school debate trophy. The third I carried with me. At 17, things escalated. My dad was officially promoted to city commissioner. He was now the top dog, and his ego inflated to match. With his new power, Mom's businesses doubled in revenue. Mia, now 15, was fully leaning into her role as the spoiled, untouchable princess of the city's elite. She wore designer clothes to school, bullied other girls, and acted like she owned the pavement she walked on. One evening, my parents hosted a private dinner at our mansion to celebrate Dad's promotion. The guest list included powerful developers, local politicians, and business moguls. I was strictly forbidden from attending. Mom shoved me into my room, locked the door from the outside, and hissed, "Do not make a sound, you little freak. Tonight is too important." I sat in my room, listening to the clinking of champagne glasses and the booming, fake laughter of my father floating up from the garden patio. I looked at the clock. 8:30 p.m. Prime time. I didn't break the door down. I simply opened my window, climbed out onto the trellis, and scaled the wall up to the roof. I shimmied across the Spanish tiles until I was positioned directly above the patio where my father was giving a toast. And I owe it all to my beautiful family, my supportive wife, and the integrity of this great city. Dad announced, raising his glass. The guests clapped politely. I took a deep breath, channeled my inner banshee, and threw a massive, heavy clay pot of geraniums straight off the roof. It smashed into the center of the patio table, right next to the roasted pig, exploding into a shower of dirt, shattered terracotta, and red flowers. The guests screamed. Champagne glasses shattered. My father leaped back, his suit splattered with wet soil. Before anyone could look up, I let out a blood-curdling, rhythmic wail. Repent. The blood money burns. The foundations are built on bones. Richard Jones, the devil has your receipts. I scrambled back over the roof, slid down the trellis, and dove back through my bedroom window, pulling it shut just as the security guards ran around the side of the house. I dove under my covers and started snoring softly. 10 minutes later, my door was kicked open. My father stormed in, his face purple with absolute, murderous rage. He marched to my bed, grabbed me by the hair, and yanked me out of the covers. "You crazy bitch," he roared, raising his fist. "I'll kill you. I'll actually kill you this time." I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just looked him dead in the eyes and smiled. It wasn't a crazy smile this time. It was the cold, clinical smile of an apex predator. "Hit me," I whispered. "Leave a mark. Please. Do it." He hesitated, his fist trembling in the air. "If you hit me," I continued, my voice steady and completely devoid of the manic energy I usually projected, "I will send the email." "What are you talking about?" he spat. "I'm talking about the Cayman Islands account ending in 4409, I said casually, adjusting the collar of my pajamas. "I'm talking about the $2.4 million wired from the Sterling Construction Group to Mom's Horizon Real Estate account exactly 3 days before you approved their bid for the highway expansion. I'm talking about the ledger under your desk drawer. I'm talking about 20 to life in federal prison, Dad." The color drained from his face so fast I thought he was going to pass out. He dropped my hair as if it had caught fire. He stumbled back, his eyes darting frantically around the room, breathing heavily. Mom appeared in the doorway, breathless. "Richard, the guests are leaving, what?" She stopped when she saw his face. "Richard? You're lying," he choked out, his voice a pathetic rasp. "Am I?" I tilted my head. "Account 4409. Password. Mia Princess 2010. You really should use stronger passwords, Mr. Commissioner. It's embarrassing." Mom gasped, covering her mouth. I smoothed my hair back, walked over to my desk, and sat down in my rolling chair, swiveling to face them like a CEO firing her interns. "Here's how this is going to work from now on," I said, my tone brisk and businesslike. "I am no longer the crazy daughter. I am no longer the ghost in the attic. I am your silent partner. Tomorrow, you will open an irrevocable trust in my name. You will deposit $2 million into it. You will pay for my tuition at whichever Ivy League university I choose to attend. You will never lock my door again, and if Mia so much as breathes in my direction, I will ruin her." You little ungrateful snake," Dad whispered, shaking with a mix of terror and fury. "I am your father. I gave you life. And you made that life a living hell for a decade," I replied coldly. "Consider the $2 million a back pay for damages. And Dad? If anything happens to me, if I get hit by a car, if I magically overdose, if I fall out a window, my dead man's switch activates. The local press, the FBI, and the State Anti-Corruption Bureau will receive everything. You don't have a choice. You're my hostage now." I smiled sweetly. "Now get out of my room. I have an AP calculus test tomorrow, and I need my sleep." They left in silence. The next day, the trust fund was opened. By the end of the week, the money was there. High school graduation came and went. I was valedictorian. I stood on the stage, delivered a beautiful speech about family and perseverance, and stared directly at my parents in the front row. They looked like hostages in a ransom video, clapping stiffly, their smiles tight and panicked. Mia sat next to them, glaring at me with a hatred she couldn't understand, entirely oblivious to the fact that her luxurious lifestyle was currently resting entirely in the palm of my hand. I moved across the country to attend Stanford. I bought a beautiful off-campus condo with my trust fund. I bought a Porsche. I went to therapy. I made friends. I lived. For 4 years, I barely spoke to my family. They transferred my tuition, they transferred my allowance, and in return, I didn't send them to federal prison. It was the healthiest relationship we had ever had. But greed is a disease, and my father was terminally ill. By the time I was 22, graduating with a double major in finance and computer science, my dad had set his sights on the governor's mansion. He was running a statewide campaign. His face was on billboards. He was the family values candidate. Mia, meanwhile, was 20 and a total disaster. Without me there to absorb my parents' toxicity, all their pressure had fallen onto her. She had been kicked out of 2 private colleges for partying and academic fraud. She had a DUI that Dad had to illegally expunge from her record. She was a liability. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Chloe," she said, her voice dripping with fake warmth. "Honey, how are you?" "Cut the crap, Mom. What do you want?" I asked, sipping an iced latte on my balcony overlooking the California coast. She sighed, a long, suffering sound. "Your father's campaign is entering a critical phase. We're doing a major family interview with State Chronicle next week. A televised town hall. We need you to fly back. We need the whole perfect family picture. You're a Stanford graduate now. It looks incredible for his campaign." "My appearance fee is $500,000, I said flatly. "Chloe, be reasonable," she snapped, her mask slipping. "We have given you millions. We left you alone. We've done everything you asked. You owe us." "I owe you nothing. I bought my peace with blackmail, not love. 500 grand, or I don't show." There was a muffled argument on the other end of the line. Dad was there. Finally, Mom came back on. "Fine. It will be wired tomorrow. But you better smile, Chloe. You better play the perfect daughter." "Oh, I will," I promised. I flew back to my hometown a week later. The moment I stepped out of the airport, the suffocating humidity of the city hit me, bringing back memories of bruises, tears, and crawling on the floor like a goblin. But I wasn't that scared, desperate 14-year-old anymore. I was an adult, armed to the teeth. I arrived at the television studio where the town hall was being filmed. My parents were in the green room. Dad was wearing a tailor navy suit. Mom looked like a step-forward wife in pearls. Mia was there too, wearing a dress that was too short, chewing gum loudly, looking absolutely miserable. "You look well," Dad said stiffly when I walked in. He didn't hug me. He didn't even step toward me. "I look expensive, Richard." "Because I am," I replied, tossing my designer bag onto the sofa. Mia scoffed. "Still a stuck-up bitch, I see." I turned slowly to look at my sister. The years had not been kind to her attitude. She looked tired, bloated from alcohol, and deeply unhappy.
Hello, Mia.
Still riding Daddy's coattails because you can't pass a basic English exam. "You." She lunged forward, but Mom grabbed her arm, digging her nails in. "Stop it. Both of you. Not today." Mom hissed. She turned to me, her eyes manic. "We're going out there, we're sitting on those chairs, and we're going to talk about how much we love each other. Do you understand?" "Loud and clear," I said. A producer popped his head into the room. "Commissioner Jones, we're ready for you and the family." We walked out onto the brightly lit stage. The studio audience applauded as we took our seats on plush, white couches opposite the state's most famous political anchor, a sharp-eyed man named Marcus Vance. For the first 20 minutes, it was nauseating. Dad gave his usual rehearsed speeches about infrastructure, community, and traditional values. Mom nodded adoringly. Mia stared blankly at the teleprompter. Then, Marcus Vance turned to me. "Chloe," he said, offering a warm smile. "You've been somewhat of a mystery in the commissioner's public life. You recently graduated from Stanford with top honors, completely independent. Your father speaks often about how his family's core values of hard work and honesty shaped you. Can you tell us a bit about growing up in the Jones household?" The studio was dead silent. The camera zoomed in on my face. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my father stiffen. His hands gripped his knees tightly. The live feed was broadcasting to millions across the state. This was it. The precipice. The moment I had dreamed of since I was a battered, ignored 10-year-old left in the countryside. Since the moment I had cake smashed in my face. Since the moment my father beat me until I couldn't breathe. I looked into the camera. I smiled the brightest, most terrifyingly serene smile of my life. Growing up in the Jones household was an incredibly educational experience, I said, my voice smooth and resonant. My father taught me about the absolute pursuit of wealth, and my mother taught me about the importance of keeping quiet. Marcus Vance blinked, a little taken aback by the phrasing.
I see.
Hard work, as they say. No, I corrected gently, leaning forward. Not hard work. Extortion. The audience shifted uncomfortably. My father let out a nervous chuckle. "Chloe has always had a dark sense of humor, Marcus. She's a joker." "I'm not joking," I said, my voice dropping an octave, carrying through the studio like a cracked bell. I turned my body to face my father directly. I learned about honesty when I was 14 and discovered that my father was accepting bribes from the Sterling Construction Group to fast-track municipal permits. I learned about hard work when I watched my mother launder those bribes through her shell companies, Crescent Spa Holdings and Horizon Real Estate. Gasps echoed through the studio. The producer behind the camera was frantically waving his hands, but the cameramen were frozen, capturing every second. This was live television. This was a ratings goldmine. My father leaped his feet, his microphone cord violently yanking his jacket. "Cut the feed. Cut the goddamn feed. She's having a psychotic break. She's been mentally ill for years. I have the offshore account numbers. I continued loudly, raising my voice over shouting, speaking directly into my lapel mic. Account 4409, Cayman Islands. I have the ledgers. And as of 10 minutes ago, while I was sitting in the green room, I emailed the entire encrypted file to the FBI, the IRS, and every major news outlet in the state. You fucking bitch. Dad roared, losing every ounce of his political composure. He lunged across the couch toward me, fully intent on strangling me on live television. But I wasn't the 14-year-old girl he could beat senseless anymore. I calmly stood up, took a step back, and watched as security guards rushed the stage, tackling the furious, screaming city commissioner to the ground. Mom was hyperventilating, clutching her chest, her perfect pearls snapping and scattering across the studio floor. Mia was shrieking, holding her hands over her ears as chaos erupted. The anchor, Marcus, was yelling for a commercial break, but the damage was done. It was live. It was out there. The internet never forgets. I stood at the edge of the stage, watching my father being restrained by three large men, his face pressed against the glossy white floor of the set. He looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot, veins popping from his forehead, looking exactly like the literal demon he had been to me all those years ago. Why? He screamed, spit flying from his lips. We paid you. We left you alone. Why? I walked over, crouching down just out of his reach. I looked at the man who had brought me into the world, the man who had despised me for being born a girl, who had ignored me, beaten me, and tried to erase my existence. Because, I whispered, my voice cold as ice, I told you. I don't just squeak. If you take a step back, people will just walk all over your miserable face. And nobody will ever love someone who doesn't even love themselves. I stood up, adjusted my blazer, and smiled. Happy election season, Dad. I hear orange is the new black. I turned and walked off the stage. The aftermath was glorious. Biblical destruction. The FBI raided my father's offices and my parents' properties the very next morning. The ledgers I provided were flawless. Every hidden cent, every dirty deal, every corrupt contractor was laid bare in high-definition reality. My father was indicted on 42 counts of racketeering, bribery, wire fraud, and tax evasion. My mother was hit with money laundering and conspiracy charges. Because I was the whistleblower who handed over the documents and fully cooperated with the federal authorities, I was granted complete immunity. Better yet, the trust fund they had set up for me was legally untouchable, classified as a clean asset transferred before the official investigation began. I kept the millions. They lost everything. 6 months later, the trials concluded. My father was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. My mother got 8 years in a minimum security facility. All of their assets, the mansions, the luxury condos, the cars, the bank accounts, were seized by the government. Which left Mia. At 20 years old, Mia was completely, utterly destitute. She had no degree, no skills, no work ethic, and suddenly, no daddy to pay her way out of trouble. On a rainy Tuesday, I was packing up my apartment in California to move to New York for a new job in a high-tier finance firm.
The doorbell rang.
I opened it to find Mia, standing there. She was soaked from the rain, holding a cheap duffel bag, looking thin, ragged, and terrified. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a cheap hoodie and worn-out sneakers. She looked up at me, her lips trembling. Chloe, she whispered, her voice breaking. I have nowhere to go. My friends blocked my number. The bank took the house. Mom and Dad are gone.
Please.
I know we didn't get along, but we're sisters. You have money. You have space. Please help me. I stood in the doorway, sipping a cup of hot black coffee. I looked at her, truly looked at her. I remembered the 8-year-old girl who blew out my birthday candles. I remembered the teenager who taunted me about my inheritance. I remembered the family of 3 that never had room for a 4th. I really pity you, Mia, I said softly, echoing the exact words she had said to me in my bedroom years ago. What's the point? You're never going to be welcome in this house. Her eyes widened in horror as she realized what I was saying. Chloe, please. I'll do anything. I'll clean. I'll be good. I have nothing. You have exactly what you earned, I said smoothly. If you're smart, you'll pack your bags and get the hell out. Maybe I'll convince myself to throw a few bucks your way. To a homeless shelter. You're a monster, she screamed, tears streaming down her face, her desperation turning to venom. You destroyed our family. You're a psycho. I smiled, a genuine, warm, completely unhinged smile. I leaned forward, my face inches from hers. Blow, 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 I whispered playfully. Then I stepped back, closed the heavy oak door in her face, and locked the deadbolt with a solid, satisfying click. I walked back into my beautiful, quiet apartment. I set my coffee down, stretched my arms high above my head, and took a deep, unrestricted breath of fresh air. My name is Chloe Jones. I was reborn at the age of 14. I cured my martyrdom syndrome, burnt my toxic family to the ground, and built an empire on their ashes. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was perfectly, brilliantly happy.